right, so this video is about rising and ascendant signs, all right? And so your rising sign is the sign that was on the eastern horizon at the time of your birth, all right? And so your rising sign is typically different than your sun sign or different than other signs, but not all the time. Sometimes there are overlaps. This is what people are first going to see when they meet you. Sometimes it's referred to as the mask, right? And so it's not really what's underneath the surface, but it's what the presentation is. And so it does affect the way, it does affect people's perception of you, all right? And so sometimes, even with like astrologers or like, you know, it could be easier to guess someone's rising sign than it is their sun sign at times. Or sometimes you'll see someone's sun sign. Like you'll see like a person who's like an Aries, but you're like, wait, you're not a typical Aries. You're not a typical Aries. You're not very extroverted. You're not overly confident. You're not a risk taker. Now, in some area of their life they are. Even if somebody doesn't fit their sign in some way they do, but that typically means there's a different rising sign. So their reputation, the way they carry themselves might be like a Taurus or a Virgo or a Capricorn. So it's a little subdued, right? And so that's why you have to understand the difference between like your rising sign is not truly who you are inside. It's what the outside sees. It's what people see on the outside. And it is important. One thing I've noticed from doing different people's charts is that when you have the same rising as someone, you have the same transit. So remember, you have a birth chart, planetary placements that are the same. Only they don't change. Only time it would change, sometimes people do relocation charts, but I'm not talking about that. But you have a birth chart and then you have a transit chart. So right now, right, for instance, right now Venus is in Taurus until the 8th. Right now I'm doing this video. It is right now it's end of May. Actually, it's not the end of May. It is June. It's June now. So the 8th, it's going to move placements. But every person's transit chart has Venus and Taurus in one of the 12 houses. It depends on your personal chart where that is. That's why personal horoscopes are really important to do, not just general ones. Because right now, everybody's transit chart has Venus and Taurus somewhere, even if you don't have Venus and Taurus in your actual birth chart. Do you see what I'm saying? So the transits do affect us. But what I've noticed is that people with similar risings have similar transits. And so the sun is in the 4th house for a certain rising. It's in the same house for another person with the same rising. Or it's a little bit off. Do you see what I'm saying? So like a person, they both might be Geminis, but maybe they're a couple weeks apart. So one person's sun is in the 4th house, the other sun is in the 5th house. Or sometimes I'll see people with the same rising when I check their transits. All their planets are in the same house at the moment. That can happen too. So it's very important to know your rising sign, because then you're going to, one, know how people can perceive you. You're going to know what you need to work on or what you need to strengthen, because your rising is important in how people first perceive you. And it's going to tell you what area of your life you're going to excel. If you're a Virgo rising, you're always going to be perceived in some aspect as like responsible or dependable in some way, right? If you're an Aries rising, people are going to look to you to be a leader, right? Even if you're not a leader, even if you don't feel like a leader, right? Even if you're like, I just want to relax and do what I care about. If you're a Pisces sun and you are a Libra moon, you might be like, wait, I don't want to be the leader right now. What are you talking about? But you're going to come off like a leader, that Aries rising, so people can put that pressure on you. So it's very important to know how you navigate life and how people are going to perceive you, to know what you need to work on and what you need to do. Now, I use the analogy, like, you know how you've heard the phrase, don't judge a book by its cover. Because that's what you want to do with risings. They're important to know, but that's not all the aspect to an individual, okay? Because sometimes there can be contradictions. You could come off one way, but in your chart, that's not who you really are. And so sometimes people can get into situations or relationships with people, and they get into a relationship with someone's rising sign. And what I mean by that is you see someone, you're attracted to them, you're attracted to their personality. Maybe that's just the rising showing, because people don't truly show who they are all the way at first, right? So let's say you're a Scorpio. You're a Scorpio energy person. You're Scorpio sun. You might be Scorpio moon. Maybe you're Scorpio, Mercury and Scorpio too. And you meet someone who's got a lot of fire placements and earth placements, but they have a Scorpio rising. And so at first you might say, wow, you know, this person's for me. I want to be in this relationship with them. They're just like me. They understand the same things. And 6 months later, you're like, whoa, this is not going to work. That's because you got into a relationship with their rising sign, and that's not who they really are. Okay. And so that's what you want to, you know, keep in mind with these things. It's like, the rising is not who a person truly is. Okay, a rising is the representation. And sometimes people are more comfortable showing that rising sign in the very beginning when they meet someone. They don't let their guard down until later. Now, one thing I do want to say is that the rising sign, like, you're not as conscious of your rising sign as you are your other placements. Even if a person is not, they don't know their birth chart yet, when you start telling them their birth chart, when you do a reading for them, you're going to see that the moon, it resonates with them. Like when you describe, like, actually you have a Taurus moon, that's going to resonate with them. When you tell someone a rising sign, sometimes it doesn't resonate right away, because remember, the rising is not the energy that you at the core have. It is the energy that you kind of wear on you. It is maybe a default. It might be a defense mechanism where, you know, when you're Virgo rising, when you first meet people, you behave in a reserved way, like you're not sure what to do. You might wait to see things. You're more cautious. You more need to process things when you first get into a situation. But you could be a Leo sun, and you could be a, you know, a Cancer moon, and you're just more, and so you're, you know, Aries and Cancer are cardinal energy. So actually you're a bit more extroverted, but when you first meet people, you might not be. Do you see what I'm saying? And then as over time, people are like, whoa, this is not who you really are. Whoa, because they met the rising at first. And you have to also remember, having a rising is not the same as being a sun sign. It is not the same as being a moon sign, because the sun is what you exert. The sun is what the energy that you exude out. The moon is the inner drive that you have, your motivation, what makes you feel comfortable, what, you know, makes you, what do you feel deep inside? What is it that you truly, truly desire? And so what you're going to see is that a rising does not equal the same exact thing. So what I mean by that, let me say, so one, I'm a Virgo sun and I'm a Virgo rising. That's the only Virgo I have in my chart. But because I have those two sandwiched together, it's like what you see is what you get in a way, but not really, because my sun is in the 12th house and I have a lot of 12th house placements. So like, there's a lot about myself I don't share. There's a lot about myself. There's a lot to me than what I show people. But for me, I am a Virgo sun. So when people see things on the outside as a Virgo rising, like, no, that is who I am. I identify with that. I guess that's a better way to put it. I identify with my rising because I'm a Virgo sun and I understand the Virgo traits, and I truly do embody the Virgo traits. Like, that's a part of my being. You see what I'm saying? And so for me, that is different. There's other people that I know also. They have a Gemini sun, Gemini rising, or something like that. I can usually pick those people I can usually tell people's risings if they have the same rising as their sun sign, because they are extra, it's almost like a superpower where, like, you're a really strong Gemini. Like, you're like the textbook version of a Gemini. Well, that's because they also have a Gemini rising, right? You're a textbook Capricorn rising. But if you meet somebody and they're like, wait, you're kind of like a Capricorn, you're kind of like a Sagittarius, but not all the way. Usually there's other placements there. So that moon, but the moon is what you truly see, is usually what you see in close, intimate relationships or family or friends. Like, you have to really know someone to really identify what their moon is. So that's why I say, usually if you see a drastic contrast, that person probably has a very contrasting rising to their sun sign. Lastly, again, what I was talking about is that, so let's say you have a Virgo rising person who is not a Virgo sun. So what's going to end up happening is, like, you might as a Virgo see people and say, oh, wow, you're organized and you're analytical like me. And you're automatically going to be drawn, if you're a Virgo or even a Gemini, maybe because Mercury there, you're going to be drawn to that because you're going to say, like, wow, you're just like, you know, and you're going to relate to that person in some ways, right? Maybe not emotionally, but you're going to relate to them on the surface. But what you have to understand is that they don't truly value the same things that a Virgo does. Every sign has different signature energy patterns. So Virgo is literally going to be, not all, depends on your other placements, but a Virgo is typically going to value analyzing and going deep and putting things in order and making things are a certain way and presenting themselves in a certain way. You see what I'm saying? Whereas a Virgo rising is going to sometimes do things that are Virgo-like. It's going to seem like it's the same energy, but it's a difference because the rising is, you're not even always conscious of the rising. Like, a person's not always conscious of that rising and that their energy they're exuding. Whereas the sun in Virgo or the moon in Virgo person really needs to feel organized. So they're going to do it all the time because to them, that's their emotional security is in feeling that they have everything in order. They have processed everything. Where Virgo rising is going to do things on the surface that are organized, but they might, sometimes they might not always have that trait because it's just their rising. It's not their sun. It's not their moon. They have other energies that are at play. And so that's an important thing to just realize, is that someone having the same rising as you is great for general, you can usually be the energy can play off each other. You guys can get along really well on the surface, but sometimes you have to realize that, like, that's not the same as having the same energy pattern. It's not the same as having a sun or a moon, because they're not good. This rising doesn't go as deep emotionally developmentally, all right, as your other placements. But your rising is super important to know, because if you have one energy coming off in certain settings, that's not going to work, right? In certain settings, that's not going to work. In certain settings, like I know that I have to work on as a Virgo, being more open, Virgo rising. Okay. Now, though I have fire energy in my chart, you know, I still know what I have to work on if I feel like, right? Because what comes easy to me is work, tasks. That's easy to me. Getting stuff done efficiently, effectively, and easy. It's easy, but it's like the Virgo then coming out into, you know, being more open. That is the part that I have to work on. You know, if you're a Gemini rising, you might have to work on being structured, adhering to the foundations, adhering to rules, things like that, because you might want to do everything your own way. And so that's one thing I wanted to do and just talk about. I'm probably going to do another video where I talk through each rising sign. But again, I do not want to make this video too long. This was just a basic 101 understanding of the ascendant and the rising sign.